Hello guys, welcome back to another lovely trading video. In this one we're going to be doing some in-depth stock analysis on Delta and in general the airline business as an all, because they're all going to be moving somewhat similarly. And the reason we're doing analysis on Delta is we are starting to see it coming to a level where we may, if you are long, look to be looking at profits, at least in the short term. The reason we say that we'll get into kind of later in this video, but as always we like to start off on a clean daily chart so we can see is there any gaps. The reason we like gaps is we can use these as profit targets, because if they're very noticeable gaps you tend to have strong reactions coming into these levels. And looking at straight Delta, there has been a lot of previous gaps, but we can see the majority, or if not all of them, have been filled, or any obvious gap has been filled. So for the time being we're not going to be able to look at any gaps for profit targets. So now we'll go into the standard deviation chart so we can start getting the levels that we would like to be looking at. And now the reason I say we're more short bias on Delta, yes, it's coming into the first deviation, so it's an area where we would be looking at profits and looking to get short, and or should I say getting short. But what you've also seen is obviously a lot of all airline stock had a sharp sell-off. It was mainly this move here on the Omicron news. Now we know we have seen obviously it's not going to have a massive effect. We've had a lot of different COVID variants. We've had Delta being kind of the big one before this, and we know it's an overreaction. Kind of each time they sell off, they sell off, and then they tend to recover. I mean, obviously patterns don't have to repeat themselves, but you tend to see it. So with airlines, we knew most likely the same thing was going to happen. We knew that it would most likely recover, and most likely quite quickly once the news kind of just dies down a bit, or when the kind of the fear of the Omicron variant died out a bit. So now we are seeing Delta has already touched its first deviation on the 4-hour and is coming very close to the first deviation in the daily. Now this is a zone where we would kind of just say Delta most likely won't break through this level. Reason for this is kind of two key reasons. Firstly, you can see clearly with the deviations they are in strong downtrends, and this just because airlines have been weak this past 180 day and a year. So looking at this overall, we tend to be taking more strength on levels in the direction of the trend, and so in this we're more short bias on Delta because the deviations are trending downwards. So now we come into these levels, it is something we would look to be a bit more short bias on. So yeah, really the key levels we're looking at is $41 and 42 slash kind of $42.75 slash kind of $43. It's where we kind of see this move ending. But if it does continue higher, and you can again use these levels depending on how you trade, you may use these levels differently, but these are just the areas where we expect to see big moves in the stock. So whether you're just looking to get short, you're looking to lock in profits, you can use these levels kind of either way, or even you just use them as price targets. But yeah, to the upside, levels we would be looking to get short on or lock in profits, again depending on how you trade, is $41, $42.75, $44, $46.50 and $47.25, and at a very extreme kind of a $50 target all the way up there. Now where do we have our price target if we're getting short at any of these levels? Our key price target is $39. So from where we are now, it doesn't provide a massive return on investment. Kind of where we are now, it provides kind of a 4.5% option. So for option traders, that can still be a very good trade. I mean, even on stocks, a 5% trade is still considered very good. But 39 is kind of going to be that key target. The reason for that is that statistical mean. It's the closest statistical mean that we have, and that is on the daily. And the reason we like to lock in profits when we come into here is a stock is always looking to move towards its statistical mean. So once a stock gets there, it's then going to look to then push away. So that could push upwards, and you know, obviously make your short position worse, or it could push further down, which could increase it. So really, we just like to lock in profits there, because after then it comes a bit more into a gamble. So between the areas of 39 and 38 are kind of where we would have that lock in profits to the short side. Now if you are holding through that level, or you're looking kind of deciding when to be long Delta, Then we would be looking more towards the bottom half of the deviations, so the $35.50, the $35, $32, and at an extreme low would be the kind of $28 and $29 marks. So again, all these levels, you can use them differently depending on how you trade. These are just levels where we expect large price movements, so that you could be using areas where you look for entries, exits, or however you trade, you will most likely use these levels differently. But again, airlines are kind of something weak right now. We're seeing a lot of flight cancellations, and a lot of them are just struggling to be profitable. So going for the higher up targets, the $45 and the $50 are that just a bit riskier, because we are in that strong downtrend, and they're really not as profitable as they were pre-pandemic. Quickly going on to then the Jets ETF, which is kind of just an airline ETF. This is also what you can use when looking at any airline stock, because ETFs tend to be a bit more resilient and kind of stay within their deviations a bit stronger. As you can see quite clearly, just looking at this chart, as you can see, very little amount of the time will this ETF be outside the first deviations, and that's why we like looking at this when we're looking to trade airlines, because we know, looking at this, Delta does actually have a bit more room to the upside, and so when looking at Delta, we could say, okay, we could look more towards that 42.75 target, just because looking at the Jets ETF, it hasn't yet touched a first deviation, so we still have some more room to the upside. So really, when looking at this, we're kind of looking towards the 28.75, kind of $24 level, but the 22.80 level kind of being that key one. Once the Jets ETF comes into this level, then we would also be looking to sell our our Delta position, because it's most likely going to sell off from there. So again, Jets can be a good thing to be looking at when doing your analysis on airline stocks. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, drop a like and subscribe. Otherwise, and hope to see you next one. That's it. Peace. I go down for that money.